Hello there, and welcome to Fall Asleep. Tonight, we are going somewhere surprising. Not a distant planet, not the deep ocean, not any place you would need a vehicle to reach. Tonight, we are going inside a tree. Not the bark, not the leaves, not the shape of it against the sky. We are going into the wood itself, into the invisible plumbing hidden inside every living tree on Earth. Because something extraordinary is happening inside trees. Right now, at this very moment, water is moving upward. Not trickling down the way water normally does. Not pushed by any pump. Not driven by any engine. Water is being pulled upward from the roots below, all the way to the topmost leaves. Against the force of gravity. Through channels narrower than a human hair. In the tallest trees on Earth, that journey is over 100 meters. The coastal redwoods of California stand taller than 35-story buildings. Taller than a 30-story building. And it happens every minute of every day. Without any pump. Without any motor. Without any moving parts at all. The tree does it using only the properties of water molecules. Using cohesion, tension, and adhesion. Forces so elegant and precise that engineers still study them with admiration. This mechanism is called the cohesion tension theory. It is one of the most beautiful pieces of physics in all of biology. And it is happening right now, in every tree on Earth, quietly. Continuously, invisibly, before we settle into this quiet journey together. If you find these evenings restful, I invite you to like, subscribe, or leave a gentle thought below. It helps other tired minds find their way here. One sleepy soul at a time. But for now, there is nothing you need to do. Let your jaw unclench. Let your shoulders drop. Let your hands soften where they rest. Let your breathing slow into something easy and natural. Like the breathing of someone who has already let the day go. And as your mind begins to release the weight of today, join me as we travel into the quiet inner world of a tree. Let us begin. The xylem is the name for this water transport system. It runs through every vascular plant on Earth, from ferns to oak trees, from tomato vines to bamboo. Every plant that stands upright against gravity uses xylem to stay alive. The xylem is also ancient. It first appeared in plants roughly 400 million years ago. It was the invention that allowed plants to colonize dry land, to grow tall, to reach the sunlight above the competition. Without xylem, the land would be covered only by mosses and algae. Low, wet, ground-hugging things. With xylem, the land became forests, canopies, jungles. The air you breathe is richer in oxygen because xylem-bearing plants grow tall enough to photosynthesize on a planetary scale. The story of xylem is the story of how the land became green. To understand how water moves up a tree, we need to understand something about water itself. Water is one of the most studied molecules on Earth, and it continues to surprise the scientists who study it. A single water molecule is simple enough. One oxygen atom bonded to two hydrogen atoms, a tiny V shape, barely 3 angstroms across. But the way water molecules behave around each other is anything but simple. Each water molecule is slightly polar. The oxygen end carries a small negative charge. The hydrogen ends carry small positive charges. This polarity means water molecules are attracted to each other. The positive end of one molecule is drawn to the negative end of another. This attraction is called a hydrogen bond, and it gives water a property called cohesion. Cohesion is the tendency of water molecules to stick to each other. It is why water forms droplets. It is why a water droplet on a leaf holds its rounded shape. It is why some insects can walk across water without sinking. Surface tension is cohesion at the surface of a liquid. The molecules there are pulled inward by the attraction of molecules below and beside them. And cohesion is why a column of water in a narrow tube resists being pulled apart. If you try to separate two hydrogen-bonded water molecules, you must apply real force. A column of water in a very narrow tube behaves almost like a chain. Pull one end, and the whole chain moves. This is the first key to understanding how water travels up a tree. Not pushed from below, but pulled from above. A continuous chain of water molecules, stretching from root to leaf, held together by cohesion all the way. There is also a second force called adhesion. Adhesion is the attraction between water molecules and the surface they touch. Water molecules are attracted to each other. They are also attracted to the walls of the tube around them. This is why water climbs the inside of a thin glass tube. You dip it into water. The narrower the tube, the higher the water climbs. This phenomenon is called capillary action. In the xylem tubes of plants are extremely narrow. Capillary action contributes meaningfully to water movement. Together, cohesion and adhesion create a water column. Climbs naturally upward and holds together under tension. There is one more property of water worth knowing here. Water molecules not only attract each other, they also attract other polar surfaces. The inside of a xylem tube is made partly of cellulose and lignin. Both of these materials have polar groups on their surfaces. Water molecules are attracted to them. This is adhesion. And adhesion, combined with cohesion, is what allows capillary action to occur. In a very thin tube, the water molecules near the wall are pulled upward by adhesion. They pull the molecules beside them through cohesion. Those molecules pull the ones above, and a column of water rises. The narrower the tube, the stronger this effect. In a tube 1/10 of a millimeter across, water rises about 15 centimeters. In xylem tubes, which are even narrower, the rise from capillarity alone contributes meaningfully to the total lift. It is one part of a cooperative system, every force doing its share. Before we talk about how water is pulled upward, we need to understand that pull comes from. It comes from the leaves. More specifically, it comes from what happens inside the leaves on a sunny day. Inside every leaf, there are millions of tiny pores called stomata. Each stoma is a small opening flanked by 2 guard cells. These guard cells can open or close the pore, depending on conditions. When stomata are open, carbon dioxide enters the leaf from the air. The plant uses this carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, converting it into sugars using sunlight. But when stomata open to let carbon dioxide in, something else also happens. Water vapor escapes. The interior of the leaf is moist. The air outside is usually drier. Water always moves from areas of high concentration to lower concentration, so water vapor drifts out through the stomata into the surrounding air. This process is called transpiration, and the scale of it is remarkable. A single large oak tree can transpire hundreds of liters of water. This happens on a hot summer day, continuously. A large forest transpires billions of liters. All of that water has to come from somewhere. It comes from the roots, through the xylem, pulled upward by the loss of water at the top. Each molecule that escapes creates a tiny tension. That tension is transmitted downward through the water column. A slight pulling force, transmitted downward through the cohesive chain, all the way from the leaf to the root tip in the soil. This is called the cohesion tension theory. Evaporation at the top creates tension. tension is transmitted downward through the cohesive water column. Water is drawn upward from the roots to replace what was lost at the leaf. The driving force is sunlight. The sun evaporates water from leaf surfaces. This creates a water potential gradient from root to leaf. And water flows down that gradient, which means upward in space, against gravity, powered by the sun, requiring no energy from the plant itself. No pump, no engine, just physics. There is another aspect of transpiration worth noting. The rate of transpiration varies enormously depending on conditions. On a hot, dry, windy day with bright sunshine, transpiration is very high. Stomata are open wide. Wind carries water vapor away from the leaf surface quickly. The gradient between inside the leaf and outside is steep. Water escapes rapidly. On a still, cool, humid day, transpiration slows. The air already carries a lot of water vapor. The gradient is less steep. Less water escapes. The plant responds to these conditions by adjusting its stomata. On very dry days, when the risk of dehydration is high, the plant may close its stomata partially. This reduces water loss, but also reduces photosynthesis. Every day, in every plant, this negotiation takes place between water conservation and carbon dioxide uptake, between survival and growth. The stomata are the valves through which this negotiation is conducted. Tiny, invisible without a microscope, but critical to the life of the plant. Now let us look at the xylem itself. The channel through which water travels is a remarkable structure. Xylem is a type of plant tissue. It forms a network of tubes running from the roots, up through the stem or trunk, into every branch, twig, and leaf. In a woody tree, xylem is the wood. What we call wood, the hard material at the center of a tree trunk, is almost entirely made of xylem. The cells that form xylem tubes do something unusual as they mature. They build strong, reinforced walls. Then they die. Their cell contents break down and disappear. What remains is a hollow tube, reinforced with spiral or ring-shaped bands of a tough material called lignin. These bands prevent the tube from collapsing inward when water under tension flows through it. Water under tension is being pulled. A pulling force on a liquid tends to cause collapse. The lignin bands hold the tube open, like metal rings holding a flexible pipe in shape. In most flowering plants, the water-conducting cells are called vessel elements. They are wide and efficient. When vessel elements stack end to end, the walls between them dissolve. This leaves a single long continuous channel. In conifers and more ancient plants, the water-conducting cells are called tracheids. Tracheids are narrower and somewhat less efficient than vessels, but they provide a backup network that is harder to disrupt. If one pathway fails, water can often take another. The entire xylem network is built to keep water moving upward under significant tension, without collapsing, without leaking, without losing the continuity of the water column. It is a system of extraordinary precision, shaped by hundreds of millions of years of evolutionary pressure. To do one thing very well, move water upward, reliably and continuously, in any weather, in any season, all the way from root to leaf. The xylem is not alive. It is made of dead cells, but what those dead cells have been shaped into is remarkable. It is one of the most effective fluid transport systems in nature. The xylem also has a safety feature built into its design. The tubes are not all connected to each other in a simple series. They form a mesh, a network with many parallel pathways. If one tube becomes blocked by a bubble, water can flow around it through neighboring tubes. This redundancy makes the xylem system robust against local failures. It also means that the loss of one xylem tube does not cut off the water supply to the leaves above it. The water simply reroutes, finds another path, continues upward. This is one reason why trees survive drought conditions that would quickly kill a simple pipe system. They have redundancy built in at every level, redundancy in individual tubes, redundancy in the arrangement of tubes in the wood, redundancy in the ability to grow new wood with new xylem if the old wood is damaged. A tree does not have a single point of failure in its water transport system. It has thousands of points of robustness. Let us pause and appreciate how remarkable this really is. A coast redwood tree can grow more than 115 meters tall. The tallest known living tree, named Hyperion, stands at 116 meters. That is taller than a 35-story building. Water must travel that entire distance, from the fine root tips in the soil below to the uppermost leaves far above, in a single continuous unbroken column. To lift water 100 meters against gravity alone requires enormous force. Scientists have calculated the pressure needed to do this. It is roughly 10 atmospheres, 10 times normal atmospheric pressure. And that is just to overcome gravity. Additional force is needed to overcome friction as water moves through narrow tubes. In practice, at the top of a tall tree, the tension in xylem water can reach 20 to 40 atmospheres. This is a tension, not a pressure. The water is not being pushed but pulled. It is under negative pressure, being stretched, pulled toward the leaves above and resisted by gravity below, and the water column holds. It holds because cohesion between water molecules is strong enough to resist enormous tension before breaking. The tensile strength of water in very narrow tubes has been measured experimentally. It exceeds by a wide margin what the tree actually generates. This means the system operates with a safety margin. The water column could sustain even higher tensions than tall trees actually produce. The remarkable thing is not just that this works at all. It is that it works so reliably, day after day, season after season, in thousands of species. From mosses a centimeter tall to redwoods more than 100 meters high. The same physics that moves water up a blade of grass also moves it up the tallest tree on Earth. And it works because of something almost impossibly simple. Water molecules hold on to each other. They have always held on to each other. They do so without instruction, without energy, without any mechanism beyond their own molecular nature. Quiet, continuous, invisible. The tensile strength of water has been measured in laboratory experiments using very narrow tubes, water in a glass capillary, with carefully purified water and no dissolved gases, can sustain tensions of hundreds of atmospheres before cavitating. Hundreds. Far beyond what any tree actually generates. This is remarkable. It means the tree's xylem operates well within the physical limits of what water can sustain. It has a safety margin. In practice, real xylem water contains dissolved gases, and the tubes are not perfectly smooth. These imperfections lower the practical tensile strength below the theoretical maximum. But still, trees rarely push their xylem water columns to the point of widespread cavitation under normal conditions. Only in severe droughts does the system begin to fail, and even then, many trees have mechanisms to repair the damage during the night, when transpiration stops and tensions relax. But what happens when the system fails? What happens when the water column breaks? A liquid under tension can be disrupted by a small bubble of air or vapor. When this happens inside a xylem tube, it is called cavitation. A tiny bubble forms inside the tube. The tension in that part of the column collapses. The tube fills with vapor instead of water. It is no longer conducting. It has been embolized. You can actually hear cavitation happening. Scientists have recorded the sounds that xylem cavitation produces, high-frequency clicks and pops, inaudible to the human ear without instruments, but very real. Each click is the sound of a water column snapping, of a small tension catastrophically releasing. Cavitation happens more often when a plant is under drought stress. When water is scarce in the soil, the tension in the xylem increases. The water column is being stretched harder. The risk of a bubble forming grows, and once a tube cavitates, it is temporarily out of service. Plants have several ways of dealing with this. Many trees have redundant xylem pathways. If one tube is blocked by a bubble, water can take a parallel route. The xylem network is not a single pipe, but a mesh of interconnected channels. Some plant species can actually refill embolized tubes. This was long considered impossible. Water is under tension, so pumping water into a tube under tension seemed contradictory. But it happens. The exact mechanism is still debated among plant scientists. It may involve sugars dissolved in the xylem water, creating local pressure gradients. Or it may involve the activity of living cells surrounding the dead xylem tubes. Either way, plants work to restore blocked tubes. The xylem is not a passive pipe. It is a dynamic system that actively manages water movement under conditions that would challenge any engineered system of comparable size. Trees have been managing this system for hundreds of millions of years, refilling embolized tubes during cool nights when tension is low, recovering from drought, preparing for the next day of transpiration. Some plants are especially vulnerable to cavitation. Desert plants face this problem most acutely. They live in environments where the soil is dry, the air is hot, and transpiration rates could quickly strip the xylem of water. Desert plants have evolved various strategies. Some have very thick, waxy cuticles on their leaves. These reduce water loss through the leaf surface itself, separate from the stomata. Some have tiny or reduced leaves. Less leaf surface means less transpiration. Some, like cacti, have abandoned leaves altogether. Their green stems carry out photosynthesis, but the surface area is much reduced. Others open their stomata only at night, when temperatures are lower and humidity is higher. This is called cam photosynthesis. They store carbon dioxide absorbed at night, then use it during the day with the stomata closed. A clever workaround that conserves water at the cost of some photosynthetic efficiency. The diversity of plant strategies for managing xylem water loss is a testament to how central this problem is to life on land. Water does not travel alone through the xylem. It carries dissolved minerals with it, and this is one of the xylem's most essential secondary functions. When water enters the roots of a plant, it picks up mineral nutrients from the soil: nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, iron, and many trace elements. These dissolved minerals are carried upward with the water stream, delivered to every cell in the plant that needs them. Without this delivery, the plant cannot build proteins. It cannot make chlorophyll. It cannot carry out photosynthesis. It cannot grow. The xylem is therefore not just a water pipe. It is a nutrient delivery system. The roots are responsible for selecting which minerals enter the plant. Root cells actively pump certain ions from the soil into the root interior, using energy to concentrate minerals that would not simply diffuse in on their own. Once inside the root, these minerals enter the xylem stream and are carried upward. The flow is continuous throughout the day, a quiet, invisible circulation keeping the plant alive from its deepest root tips to its most distant leaves. There is also a parallel transport system in the plant called the phloem, where the xylem carries water and minerals upward. The phloem carries sugars downward. Sugars produced by photosynthesis in the leaves are loaded into phloem cells, then transported to every part of the plant that needs energy. The roots need sugar to fuel their growth. Developing seeds need sugar to fill themselves. The stem needs sugar to grow and defend itself. Xylem and phloem together form a complete two-way supply system. Water and minerals flowing up, sugars flowing down. A circulation as essential to the tree as blood is to an animal, but entirely without a heart, without a pump, driven by physics and the properties of water, and by the sun shining on leaves far above, evaporating water, creating tension, pulling the whole system upward, day after day, season after season. The phloem, which carries sugars downward, uses a completely different mechanism from the xylem. Sugar is loaded into phloem cells at the leaves. This creates a high concentration of dissolved sugar in those cells. Water follows the sugar by osmosis. This creates pressure at the leaf end of the phloem. Sugar and water flow downward toward the roots and other tissues where the sugar is consumed. As sugar is consumed, the concentration drops. Water leaves the phloem there. The pressure difference between the sugar-loaded leaf end and the sugar-depleted root end drives the flow. This is called the pressure flow hypothesis. It was proposed by Ernst Munch in 1930. Like the cohesion tension theory in xylem, it was debated for decades before being confirmed by experiment. The phloem mechanism is pressure-driven. Unlike the tension-driven xylem, and unlike the xylem, the phloem cells that carry sugar are alive. They remain alive and active throughout the transport process. Two systems, two different mechanisms, but working in parallel in the same plant, transporting different things in different directions simultaneously. The cohesion tension theory was first proposed in the 1890s. Two scientists working independently arrived at the same idea. Henry Dickson, an Irish botanist, and John Joly, an Irish physicist, published the theory together in 1894. At the time, it was controversial. The idea that water could be under tension seemed physically implausible. Water was a liquid. Liquids do not stretch, or so it seemed. The debate continued for decades. Some scientists accepted the theory. Others argued the tension required to lift water in tall trees exceeded what water could sustain. They proposed alternative mechanisms. Root pressure, for example. Roots can generate positive pressure that pushes water upward. You can see this early in the morning. Water droplets appear on the tips of grass leaves. This is called guttation, and it is driven by root pressure. Root pressure is real, but calculations showed root pressure was far too weak. It could not lift water to the top of a tall tree. It might push water a meter or two upward, not 100 meters. Eventually, as experimental techniques improved, the cohesion tension theory was confirmed. Scientists built artificial tubes resembling xylem and measured the tension water could sustain in them. They used instruments called pressure probes to measure actual pressure inside living xylem tubes. They found negative pressures, tensions, of exactly the magnitude the theory predicted. Dickson and Joly had been right. Water in a very narrow tube can sustain enormous tension without breaking. And that tension, generated by evaporation at the top, transmitted downward through the cohesive column, is the force that lifts water in tall trees. A theory proposed in the 1890s using careful reasoning. Elegant experiments turned out to be entirely correct. The physics of water molecules had been correctly deduced from the behavior of plants. The invisible inner world of the tree had been understood from the outside. By two scientists watching water move and asking why. The confirmation of the cohesion tension theory required experimental techniques that did not exist in Dixon and Joly's time. One key technique was the pressure probe. This is a tiny instrument like a glass needle that can be inserted into a single xylem vessel. It measures the pressure inside that vessel directly. When researchers used pressure probes on living plants, they found exactly what the theory predicted: negative pressures, tensions of the right magnitude. The more the plant was transpiring, the more negative the pressure. The higher in the plant the measurement was taken, the more negative the pressure. Every result matched the predictions of the cohesion tension theory. Another technique involves cutting a stem underwater. When a stem is cut in air, air rushes into the xylem, disrupting the water columns. But if the cut is made while the stem is submerged, the water is maintained. You can then measure how much water flows through the cut stem when the leaves above continue to transpire. These experiments, repeated in many species and many conditions, have confirmed the theory again and again. Dixon and Joly worked it out from first principles, with no pressure probes and no modern instruments. They were simply right. You are lying very still now. The day has grown distant. The thoughts that pressed close earlier, the plans, the small worries, the conversations, have begun to soften at their edges. Your breathing has found its own pace. Slow, easy, unhurried. And as you rest here, imagine a tree. Not any particular tree, just a tree standing quietly somewhere. Its roots reaching down into dark soil, its trunk rising steadily upward, its branches spreading into the light. It looks completely still from the outside. The bark is rough and quiet. The leaves move slightly in a breeze, then settle. Everything appears to be at rest. But inside the wood of that tree, something is happening right now. Water is moving. Upward. Quietly. Continuously. Millions of tiny columns of water, each one narrower than a human hair, each one held together by the attraction of molecule to molecule, each one climbing upward through the dead hollow tubes of the xylem, pulled by the evaporation happening at the leaf surfaces far above. Drawn by a tension so subtle it produces no sound, no vibration, no detectable movement visible to the eye. Just water, rising. Drawn upward by its own nature, by the way water molecules simply cannot help but hold on to each other. The tree is completely silent from the outside, but inside, it is full of motion, full of a quiet physics that has been working this same way for 400 million years. Since the first land plants found a way to lift water above the soil surface. You can rest in that same quiet now. The physics continues without you. The water rises. The molecules hold. Everything proceeds as it has always proceeded. In your lungs, there is oxygen that was made by a leaf somewhere. In your blood, there is iron that was once lifted through xylem in some ancient tree. The same small forces that hold the trees together hold you together too. Patient. Precise. Invisible. The quiet physics of the tree is not separate from you. You are made of water. Roughly 60% of your body, by mass, is water. Every cell in your body maintains its shape and function through the properties of water. Cohesion is at work in your blood. The surface tension of water at cell membranes is essential to how cells function. The same hydrogen bonding between water molecules that lifts water in a tree is at work in every biological process in your body. The water in you is also moving upward, against gravity, from the lower parts of your body toward your heart and lungs and brain, not through xylem, through your veins and arteries. A different system, but one that also depends, ultimately, on the remarkable properties of water molecules. And like the tree, you are mostly unaware of this movement. It happens without your attention, without your effort. While you lie still and breathe slowly, the water moves through you, carried by its own nature, by forces too small to see, by the simple fact that water molecules hold onto each other and onto everything around them, without ever being asked. Let us talk more carefully about adhesion, because cohesion alone does not fully explain how water moves through xylem. There is a second force at work alongside it. Adhesion is the attraction between water molecules and the surface they are touching. Water molecules are attracted to each other. They are also attracted to the walls of the tube around them. This is why water climbs slightly up the inside of a glass tube. You dip it into water. The water molecules near the glass are attracted to the glass surface. They pull themselves upward along the wall. They pull other water molecules with them behind them. This phenomenon is called capillarity, or capillary action. You can see it clearly in a very thin glass tube. The narrower the tube, the higher the water climbs. In a tube 1/10 of a millimeter in diameter, water will rise about 15 centimeters. In a tube 1/10 the diameter, it will rise 10 times higher. The xylem tubes in plants are extremely narrow, narrower than a human hair in many species. They are narrow enough for capillary action to contribute meaningfully to water transport. In very small plants, like mosses, capillary action may be the dominant mechanism. In tall trees, it is not nearly sufficient on its own, but it works alongside cohesion and tension, adding its own upward pull to the total force that moves water. The combination of adhesion to tube walls, cohesion between water molecules, tension generated by transpiration is sometimes summarized as the Kate mechanism. Cohesion, adhesion, tension, evaporation. All four forces working together, each contributing its part to the quiet upward movement of water through the tallest structures any living thing has ever built. The xylem tube is narrow by design. The narrowness is not a limitation. It is the mechanism. Without the narrowness, the cohesive and adhesive forces would be too weak to matter at height. With it, they become one of the most effective fluid transport systems in the natural world. Capillary action is also important in plants for a reason beyond water transport. In the soil, water clings to soil particles and moves through the tiny spaces between them by capillary action. A soil with fine particles has many small spaces. Water moves through it by capillarity. This is why fine-textured soils like clay hold more water available to plant roots than coarse sandy soils do. In sandy soils, the spaces between particles are large. Capillary action is weak. Water drains quickly downward. In clay soils, the spaces are tiny. Capillary action is strong. Water is held near the surface. Plant roots absorb water from the soil through the same principles of osmosis and cohesion. Root cells maintain a lower water potential than the soil water around them. Water therefore flows from soil into root, from root into xylem. The same principle of water moving toward lower water potential governs the entire journey. From soil particle to root cell to xylem tube to leaf cell to atmosphere. A single continuous gradient, maintained by sunlight and evaporation, requiring no active pumping at any step. The xylem does not exist in isolation. It is connected to the soil on one end and the atmosphere on the other. The entire system, from soil water to xylem to leaf to air, is called the soil-plant atmosphere continuum. It is a single connected pathway for water movement, and it is governed throughout by a property called water potential. Water potential is a measure of the tendency of water to move from one place to another. Water always moves from higher water potential to lower water potential. Pure liquid water at normal conditions has a water potential of 0 by convention. Adding dissolved substances lowers water potential. Applying tension also lowers water potential. In a transpiring plant, the water potential in the leaf cells is very low, highly negative. This creates a gradient. The water potential in the leaf is lower than in the xylem below. So water moves from xylem into the leaf. The water potential in the xylem is lower than in the root cells. So water moves from root cells into the xylem. The water potential in the root cells is lower than in the soil water. So water moves from soil into the root. The entire flow of water through the plant is driven by this gradient, maintained continuously by evaporation at the leaf surface. No pump needed. No energy spent by the plant directly on water transport. The evaporation is powered by the sun. The sun evaporates water from leaves. This creates a water potential gradient. The gradient pulls water upward. The plant simply provides the pathway. The xylem tubes, the root membranes, the leaf cells. A passive but exquisitely designed pathway for water to follow its own natural tendency to move. Downhill in terms of water potential, uphill in terms of gravity. The plant does not fight gravity. It redirects the tendency of water to move toward lower water potential. And that tendency leads upward, always upward, toward the light, toward the leaves, toward the sun that drives the whole system. Water potential sounds like an abstract concept, but it is simply a way of measuring how strongly water tends to move. Pure water at normal pressure has a water potential of 0. Anything that reduces the freedom of water molecules to move lowers the water potential. Adding salt to water lowers its water potential. The salt ions attract water molecules, reducing their tendency to escape into vapor or to flow into neighboring regions. Applying a pulling tension to water also lowers its water potential. Pulled water, water under tension, has a negative water potential. It is more strongly wanting to flow toward a region where it is not being pulled. Transpiration creates a very negative water potential at the leaf. This is the most negative point in the entire gradient. Water flows toward the most negative water potential it can reach. And the most negative point is at the leaf, where evaporation is strongest. So water flows through the whole plant toward that point, from the soil, where water potential is closest to 0, through the root, through the xylem, to the leaf. Down the gradient, always downhill in water potential terms. Even though it is uphill in gravitational terms, the movement of water through plants has shaped the entire history of life on land. Before plants colonized the land, roughly 470 million years ago, all complex life was in the ocean. The land was bare, rock and dust and early soil. No forests, no meadows, no grasslands. The first land plants were small and simple. They lacked true xylem. They could only survive where moisture was abundant. They grew close to the ground, close to water sources. The development of true xylem tissue was a revolutionary event in the history of life. Once plants could move water upward efficiently, they could grow taller. A taller plant catches more sunlight. More sunlight means more photosynthesis. More photosynthesis means more growth. And taller plants shade their neighbors, giving a competitive advantage that favored further increases in height. This evolutionary pressure drove the development of increasingly sophisticated xylem over hundreds of millions of years. By the time of the Carboniferous period, roughly 350 million years ago, forests of giant tree-like plants covered much of the land. Some of those ancient trees grew more than 30 meters tall. Their xylem lifted water tens of meters against gravity. The atmosphere of the Carboniferous was rich in oxygen. partly because of the sheer scale of photosynthesis taking place in those vast forests. The coal we burn today is the compressed remains of those ancient forests. The energy in that coal originally came from the sun, captured by photosynthesis in trees that no longer exist. Built partly from water drawn upward through xylem by the same physics that works today: cohesion, tension, adhesion, evaporation. Unchanged across 400 million years, the same force that lifted water in ancient Carboniferous forests lifts water today. In the oak tree outside your window, physics does not change, only the shapes of the tubes that carry it. The development of xylem also changed the atmosphere of the earth. As the first tall plants evolved and spread, they drew enormous quantities of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. They fixed it into wood and leaves and roots. This caused a significant drop in atmospheric carbon dioxide during the Devonian and Carboniferous periods. That drop had consequences for global temperature. Lower carbon dioxide means less greenhouse effect. The Earth cooled. Ice sheets formed. The climate of the whole planet was altered by the evolutionary invention of the xylem tube, and the oxygen released by all that photosynthesis enriched the atmosphere. During the Carboniferous period, oxygen levels may have been as high as 35%, compared to 21% today. That rich oxygen atmosphere allowed insects to grow to enormous sizes. Giant dragonflies with wingspans of 60 centimeters flew through Carboniferous forests. The xylem did not just change how plants lived. It changed the planet. It changed the air. It changed what was possible for every other living thing. One of the most beautiful things about xylem transport is how it responds to changing conditions. On a hot, dry, windy day, transpiration increases. The stomata may be open wide. Evaporation from the leaf surface is high. The tension in the xylem increases. Water is being pulled upward faster. On a cool, humid, still night, transpiration slows or stops. The stomata close. The tension in the xylem decreases. Water movement slows. The plant is constantly adjusting. The guard cells that flank each stoma open and close in response to many signals: light, temperature, humidity, carbon dioxide concentration inside the leaf. When water is scarce and the plant is stressed, guard cells close the stomata to reduce water loss. This is a trade-off. Closed stomata mean less water lost, but they also mean less carbon dioxide entering. Less carbon dioxide means less photosynthesis, less growth. A plant under drought stress faces this trade-off every day. It must balance the need to stay hydrated against the need to grow. A hormone called abscisic acid plays a key role here. When the plant is drying out, abscisic acid levels rise in the leaves. This signals the guard cells to close the stomata. The plant sacrifices growth to preserve water. If the drought continues, the plant may shed its leaves entirely, reducing the surface area through which water is lost. Dormancy is another response to water shortage. Many trees in temperate climates lose their leaves in winter, not primarily because of cold, but because frozen ground prevents water uptake. The tree cannot lift water if there is no liquid water at the root, so it shuts down. It waits. And when the soil thaws and water flows again, the xylem fills. Tension builds, and water begins its quiet upward journey once more. The same journey it has been making since the first tall trees stood on the ancient land. The stomata are among the most complex structures in the plant world for their size. Each stoma is flanked by 2 guard cells. These guard cells change shape in response to signals from the environment. When light hits the leaf in the morning, photoreceptors in the guard cells detect it. They pump potassium ions into the guard cell interior. Water follows by osmosis. The guard cells swell. They bow outward, opening the pore between them. Carbon dioxide can now enter. Photosynthesis can begin. When the plant is stressed by drought, or when darkness comes, the reverse happens. Potassium ions are pumped out. Water follows. The guard cells shrink. The pore closes. This opening and closing happens millions of times in a plant's life. It is one of the most common cellular events in the plant kingdom, and it governs, moment by moment, the balance between carbon dioxide uptake and water loss, between growth and survival. The stomata are the plant's interface with the atmosphere, its negotiating surface with the outside world, and their behavior is one of the key controls on how much water the xylem must lift every day. There is a detail about water inside xylem worth sitting with for a moment. The water inside a xylem tube is technically in a state called metastable. In physics, a metastable state is stable under normal conditions, but can collapse suddenly if disturbed. Water under the tension inside a xylem tube is a liquid being stretched. In strict physical terms, the water should want to become vapor. The tension is pulling the molecules apart more than atmospheric pressure alone would allow. The water is at a negative pressure. It is, in a sense, trying not to boil, and yet it does not boil. It does not cavitate. It holds. This is because in a very narrow tube, the energy required to form a vapor bubble is much higher than in open water. A bubble must nucleate. A tiny vapor pocket must form before cavitation can occur, and in a tube only a few micrometers across. The energy barrier to nucleation is very high. This is why the narrowness of xylem tubes is so important. The same narrowness that helps with capillary action also helps prevent cavitation. The xylem tube is narrow for two good reasons, not just one. Wide tubes would conduct more water volume, but they would also be far more prone to cavitation. The plant has evolved toward a tube diameter that balances conductivity against vulnerability, a diameter that allows efficient water transport while keeping the metastable water column stable under real-world tensions. This is an engineering optimization that plant evolution arrived at through natural selection. Plants with tubes that cavitated too easily died in dry conditions. Plants with tubes too narrow grew too slowly to compete. The survivors had tubes of approximately the right diameter, and their descendants are the trees we see today. The xylem tube is a product of 400 million years of trial and error, and the answer it arrived at is extraordinarily good. Good enough to lift water over 100 meters. Good enough to sustain tension of 40 atmospheres. Good enough to have never needed replacement. The metastability of xylem water has practical implications for trees during seasonal change. In winter, temperatures drop below freezing in many climates. When xylem water freezes, dissolved gases come out of solution. When the ice thaws in spring, those gases can form bubbles, cavitation on a large scale. In ring-porous trees like oaks and ashes, the large xylem vessels formed the previous year are almost all cavitated by spring. These trees must grow a new ring of xylem vessels every spring before the leaves flush. The new vessels are functional. The old ones are blocked and inactive. This is why the rings in tree trunks are visible. Each ring marks 1 year of xylem production. Each ring was once the working water transport system of the tree. In diffuse porous trees, like beech and maple, the xylem vessels are smaller. They are less prone to winter cavitation. Some vessels remain functional for several years. The pattern of rings is less distinct, but the same physics applies. The metastability of xylem water under tension is managed differently by different species. each finding its own solution to the same fundamental problem. As we come gently toward the end of our time with the xylem tonight, let us think about what this mechanism means for the world we live in. The cohesion tension mechanism is not a small or local phenomenon. It is one of the great engines of the biosphere. Forests cover roughly 30% of the land surface of Earth. Every tree in every forest is continuously lifting water, continuously transpiring, continuously cycling water between the soil and the atmosphere. The Amazon rainforest alone transpires so much water, it significantly affects rainfall patterns across South America. Moisture evaporated from Amazon leaves is carried by wind. It falls as rain further inland, evaporates again from the forest, and is carried further still. A river of atmospheric moisture, flowing invisibly above the canopy, fed entirely by the xylem of the trees below. This atmospheric river has been called a flying river, and it is driven at its source by the cohesion tension mechanism working in billions of individual trees. The global water cycle, the movement of water between ocean, atmosphere and land, would be fundamentally different without the xylem. Forests regulate regional climate. They buffer rainfall patterns. They cool the air through transpiration. They draw down carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. All of these planetary scale services depend, ultimately, on the attraction between water molecules inside a tube narrower than a human hair, on the pull of evaporation at a leaf surface, on a tension transmitted silently downward through a cohesive water column, on a theory worked out by two Irish scientists in the 1890s, turned out to be entirely true. The world is held together by small things, small forces, small tubes, small molecules, and sometimes the smallest things turn out to be the most essential. The water in those tubes is moving right now, in every tree on Earth, in the dark. Patient as always, holding on. The flying river above the Amazon has been studied intensively in recent decades. Researchers have used isotope analysis to trace the origin of water vapor in the air above South America. They found that a significant fraction of the rainfall in the interior of the continent comes not from the Atlantic Ocean, but from water evaporated by the Amazon forest itself. The forest creates its own rainfall. This moisture recycling is possible only because of the xylem. The xylem lifts water from the soil to the canopy. The leaves transpire that water into the air. The air carries it inland. It falls again as rain. The forest absorbs it. The xylem lifts it again. Each water molecule may cycle through the forest to atmosphere pathway many times before eventually returning to the ocean. If the Amazon forest were removed, this cycling would stop. Rainfall in the interior of South America would decline significantly. The forest, in a very real sense, makes its own rain, and it does so because billions of trees, each lifting water through their xylem, collectively pump enough moisture into the atmosphere to sustain a continental-scale water cycle. Small forces, repeated billions of times, changing the world. As we rise gently now, slowly back out of the quiet interior of the tree, back toward the surface of things, back toward the world you left behind. You closed your eyes, let everything we have visited settle softly into the quiet at the back of your mind. We began with something most people walk past every day without noticing, a tree standing still. And we discovered that still is not the right word. Inside that stillness, water is rising. Continuously, silently, invisibly, pulled upward through tubes narrower than a hair by the simple attraction of one water molecule to another. We followed the water from the roots, through the xylem network, all the way to the leaves. It evaporates into the air. We learned about cohesion, the force that keeps the water column intact, and tension, the pull that moves it, and adhesion, the attraction to tube walls that helps it climb, and transpiration, the evaporation at the leaf that generates the pull in the first place. We met Henry Dixon and John Joly, two scientists in the 1890s who worked out the physics of something no one could directly observe. We sat with the idea that the water inside a Xylem tube is metastable, stretched, under negative pressure, technically trying not to boil, and yet holding, day after day, season after season, for as long as the tree lives. We saw how Xylem shaped the history of life on land, how the development of water transport allowed plants to grow tall, to fill the sky with leaves, to transform the atmosphere of the earth. And we traced that same physics forward to the Amazon's flying rivers, to the global water cycle, to the rainfall that falls on the land. You are resting right now. Through all of it, one idea stayed close. The world is held together by small things, small forces, small molecules, small tubes of dead wood doing their quiet work inside every living tree on Earth. There is nothing more you need to hold tonight. Let the Xylem continue its quiet work without you. Let the water rise in the dark. Let the molecules hold. And let yourself sink into the slow, unhurried passage of your own rest. The world is patient. The water continues to rise in the dark. In every tree standing quietly outside right now, the same small forces are at work. Cohesion between molecules, tension pulling upward, adhesion to narrow walls, evaporation at the leaf. Physics as old as the first forests, physics as precise as a mathematical equation, and as silent as anything in nature. There is a kind of comfort in that. The living world does not stop. It does not pause for night. The Xylem does not rest. The molecules do not stop holding on to each other. And somewhere, right now, a tree is drinking from the soil, lifting water through its wood, sending it upward to leaves that will open again at dawn. Patient, steady, quiet as the dark itself. The trees are patient tonight. The physics continues. And in this quiet room, you are exactly where you are meant to be. Resting. Still. Safe. If you are still with us, another quiet journey is waiting for you. And if this one helped carry you towards sleep, a like, a subscribe, or a gentle comment helps other tired minds find their way here too. From fall asleep, and from one tired mind to another, across the soft, patient dark of tonight. Sleep well, rest gently, and good night.